From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Speaking with the Enemy.
And it is a very special edition of Speaking with the Enemy because it's the first time we're ever doing it in the playoffs, as the Ticats getting set for the Eastern semifinal against Montreal Alouettes. And the man who will have the call on TSN 690 in Montreal is Sean Campbell. Sean, thanks so much for doing this. I want to start with William Stanback because I know the Ticats are paying a lot of attention to him this week. Just named the East nominee for Most Outstanding Player. I actually think he's got a pretty good chance at winning it. I know what Zach Collaros is doing in Winnipeg is pretty incredible. But I mean, just talk about the season that William Stanback has had.
Yeah, it was. I don't want to say expected, but he was really good before, a couple of years ago, and then he went to the NFL, and then that didn't work out like a lot of guys do. But he's got a lot of talent, and you could clearly see he was a cut above any other running back this year in the CFL. And he just, every first down, it wasn't 2 to 3 yards. It was 5 to 6. And that makes a quarterback's life so much easier because even on 2nd and 6 or even 2nd and 7, the Owls had faith that they'd run the ball. And if you had that one that it was 2nd and 7, he'd get 6 yards on 2nd down, and then it'd be 3rd and 1. And in the CFL, you're going to go for it on 3rd and 1. It just, the options were there for Will Stanback. So, and he just powerful. Every time he hits a guy, it's an extra 2 yards. Guys really have a tough time stopping him in his tracks. It was a very simple game plan that the Alouettes put together with him. But I think a little kudos has to go to the offensive line as well. And the offensive line has been an issue with the Owls in the past. And you know what? It was an issue this year. They didn't have many games where it's the same 5 guys. They kept changing. And it wasn't until about week 10 or 11 where it really affected them with protection issues. Because every week it was somebody different. I was like, hey, they're actually protecting the quarterback. They're having a run game. This offensive line, every single game, Landon Rice was at tackle. Then he was at guard. Christian Mann had to go to center. Sean Jameson was out. Tony Washington was battling an injury the entire way through. So, yeah, good nod to Will Stanback. Good nod to the offensive line and even the play calling from Kahari Jones. But it's been a really good season, and Stanback's going to be the face of that and the Owls running game.
And, of course, the Ticats, Simone Lawrence was asked about it this week about William Stanback, and he kind of just shot back, well, what did he do against us? Because the Ticats did hold him to 40 yards the first time they saw him, and I believe under 60-59 the second time. So 2 of the 3 of his lowest performance came against the Ticats, but something to watch for sure. Trevor Harris in Eastern semifinals. Matthew Shinetti has been pointing this out to me in person at Ticats practices, on this show. Trevor Harris is a guy who knows how to step up, sometimes in the playoffs. This is a tough task. I mean, putting into an offense on a week's notice, what are you kind of expecting to see from him and the offense, regarding, his lack of reps, I guess, with this team?
Yeah, you know what? He's been pretty good coming in for the Owls down the stretch. And, the numbers aren't going to blow you away, but he got the 8 touchdowns. And, I don't think he needs to be overwhelmingly good in the East semifinal. I kind of made the joke a couple, weeks ago when they were trying to figure out Schultz or Harris with Adams out, who do that. I was like, it doesn't matter. Turn around and hand off the ball. That's what you need to do. But the thing with Trevor Harris, he's smart with the ball, and he really tries to keep those turnovers to a minimum. So if you have a quarterback that's protecting the football, and then you have a running back that is gaining yards, that's going to lead to longer drives. That's going to lead to possession. That's going to lead to the game plan that the Alouettes want. And I think Trevor Harris brings that. I kind of drew a chart the other day of the Alouettes quarterbacks, right? And I know that Schultz has been banged up, Vernon Adams Jr. is out, and Trevor Harris. So at number 1 on the chart is Vernon Adams Jr. I think he's the best of the bunch. Then it goes to Trevor Harris. Then it goes to Matthew Schultz. But the thing is, at the bottom of that list, I have a 4th quarterback, which is Vernon Adams Jr., because you sometimes don't know which one you're going to get. And I think that's the difference with Trevor Harris. His high end may not be as high as Vernon Adams Jr., but you know what you're going to get with Trevor Harris. And I think that, keeps things easy for Kahari Jones as a coach. So I've actually liked what I've seen. I think he's going to be able to bring a good game plan. It's just going to be interesting to see if they need to bomb it out, if they are down, by 10 points or 12 points. Can he really attack that field? He hasn't really had to do it for the Owls just yet.
Patrick Levels created some headlines earlier this week on kind of day one of availability with the Alouettes, and he called out players by name. He guaranteed a win. How is this playing in Montreal in the market right now? Are people paying attention? Are they going to hold him to it?
Well, one, it's the only winning team in Montreal,
Oh, yeah.
so
Sorry.
it's getting some attention right now. It was, look, I'm in the media. I was working the morning show all week. It got a lot of play. I played that clip and then I laughed and then I played it again because I laughed. And I was like, people were trying to have him stop. The PR guy, Charles, just kind of turned and said, "Thank you, Patrick." And Patrick's like, "I'm not done," and he just kept going out and naming Mazzoli and Banks, and he didn't care, and he's slapping the table, and then Herb Zurkowski's jumping in and saying, "Hey, but Pat," he's like, "No," and he's slamming. The computer falls over. I'm like, and I got the chance to talk to Kahari Jones too, and I know he commented on it afterwards. He's like, that's what Patrick does every single week, but. I asked him about how the Owls, do that. And Patrick Levels isn't the only one. They are a very confident group. They like to show it. You see it with the way that they have bravado on the field, the way that they talk smack. It's just, they don't care that they're 7-7. They're the best team in the CFL and deal with it. That's kind of their, and I asked Kahari, I said, do you like having a team that is, that confident in themselves? And he's like, yes. And no, because that over exuberance has cost us sometimes. Earlier in the season, and I think they've been able to pull back from that, but from penalties, 15 yards, 10 yards, after the play, a touchdown, pushing a guy because you want to show that you're tough. He understands that they need to know it, but sometimes they cross the line. He just, every now and then, he wants them to dial it back and show it on the field. He says it's great because I love guys that are confident, and he's a football player too, Kahari Jones, and he kind of chuckles it off. He's like, what am I going to do with Patrick Levels? Like, I'm not going to say, what he's going to say, but let him say that. You guys love it. It's for the media. But it was interesting to watch how he reacted to it because he laughed it off. But I think deep down, he just wants to make sure that they back it up.
Yeah, and a couple of guys throughout the week they're here, like on the Ticats Audio Network, like Montreal and Hitch were talking about it and said, like, that guy's gonna get smacked. He's gonna have to watch out, type thing, like on the field, like at all times. And it's funny, but the players, the team, and I'm not sure, it was very consistent what was being said by the team. And Coach O, and credit to Shinetti and Justin Dunk for trying to get something out of it. I understand they want to get that quote right back. But it seemed like it was a pretty coordinated message, maybe unintentionally, probably intentionally, that guys, don't say anything. Don't give it any go. Because, and I think maybe Patrick Levels noticed this, is that the Ticats have had trouble with penalties, especially as of late, and undisciplined penalties after the whistle. So I have to think that Patrick Levels knows what he's doing. He was also signed by the Ticats in 2020, so I'm sure there's something there that maybe one day we'll hear the story of. Defensively, the Alouettes, they've been pretty good consistently defensively. Speaking of that secondary, what have you seen from them, and what are they going to need to do in this game? Looking at the Ticats' weapons, Don Jackson, Tim White, what do you think they're focused on this week?
Yeah, and it's been a really good season. I think Rodney Randall Jr. didn't start the season, and a couple injuries later, there he is. He's starting. He actually had to play a game at safety because they were down so many Canadians, and then they had to shuffle their Canadian content a little bit. But ever since he's gone there, and you got Money Hunter and Greg Reed, who I think has been outstanding. It's been impressive. Najee Murray's second half of the season. At first, you're kind of questioning, can he handle the everyday duties? But by the end of the season, Najee Murray finishes with a whole bunch of interceptions and gets the touchdown too. So yeah, they like to ball hawk. They like to try and pick it when they see that someone's trying to go a little too deep, and they'll be aggressive. I haven't seen too many pass interference calls against them that I've seen in the past. I think that's one of the things that they do very well. They're tight on coverage, but they don't take the penalties. Their penalties are mostly talking and smack talk and on all that stuff. But the real change I find is the Owls in the past never had a pass rush. And the fact that their pass rush, not only, they could have a first half with no sacks, but I saw 3 throws that were hurried and were misthrown or underthrown or overthrown because the quarterback was uncomfortable. He didn't want to get hit. And of course, the sack totals, I know they played Ottawa so many times. I think they're a little skewed. I'm very aware of that. But at the same time, they like to get to the quarterback, and they've been disrupting things. They have a really good front four where they don't need to blitz all the time. And when they do blitz, when they do throw somebody extra into the rush, like a Chris Aki, who whenever they made the defensive line coach change, they kind of made that little switch halfway through the season. Chris Aki, as a linebacker, has gotten involved. He's got sacks, interceptions. He's just the defense changed a little bit. So every time he's on the move, watch out. He's like that fifth guy that no one's really ready for. And he always seems to get to the quarterback when he does blitz. And it's not as often as other teams. So as a whole, I think the pressure on the quarterback helps the secondary, but the secondary not getting the penalties. Like they do get penalties, but not as often as I've seen in the past. I think that's one of the things they've done really well this year.
All right, let's wrap it up with this question here. The Montreal Alouettes will move on to the East Final if blank. Finish that sentence for me.
They win the turnover battle. So it just has to be one. If it's 1 or 2, I think the turnover battle. And if they win that line of scrimmage with Stanback, I think it's that defensive line and the offensive line battle. I really do. And even if, there's someone making contact on Stanback, is he going down after 1 or 2 yards, or is he going down after 5? I think that's the biggest thing. If they're able to still be running the football in the third quarter with Will Stanback and have no problem with Trevor Harris turning around and just handing it to Will Stanback in the third quarter, and they don't have to throw on first and second down, I think that bodes well. I think this is going to be really close. And the other thing, it's just so tough to win in Hamilton. It's such a tough building too. And for the Owls to potentially do that twice in one season, it's a big ask. It's really a big ask. But I think they have the elements to do it. And I think if they're on, and all this extra practice that Trevor Harris is getting could help them. I think it's turnover battle and that right in the trenches. Offensive line for the Owls versus defensive line of the Ticats.
I have checked the forecast. It might snow, but I've been told that it's not expected to be as windy as it was in 2013 at Guelph University in the East semifinal, where the kick went through the uprights and came back. So it won't be that windy, but the energy will certainly feel a lot like 2014 in that East final, where the Ticats put up some big numbers. But it should be a great one. Looking forward to seeing you down there at the stadium, Sean. Thanks so much for doing this.
I'll see you on Sunday.
Speaking with the Enemy, dropping twice weekly before every Ticats game. Like and subscribe to get inside the Enemy's head.